Let's meet the people who are responsible for this work of art. We're going to bring them out now, ladies and gentlemen. Show them your love. The showrunner, Robert Cooper. Welcome him to the stage, ladies and gentlemen. The only person I've ever met who can talk more than me, ladies and gentlemen, and the guy responsible for all this, the man who has to answer for it. Welcome the one and only Max Landis, everybody. And now we bring out some cast. These cats you haven't seen yet, but you're going to see very soon in season 2. Welcome to the stage, Tyler Labine, ladies and gentlemen. That's my old Reaper buddy. Hey, man, when one dick's not enough, you need Alan Two Dick, ladies and gentlemen. Bring him up here.
Dick jokes.
Welcome to the stage. I'm praying I get this right. Mpo Kawaho, ladies and gentlemen. Bring him up.
Hey, Kev, thanks for pronouncing that correctly. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Welcome to the stage, Fiona Dorff, ladies and gentlemen. Followed very closely by Jade Ashett, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Hannah Marks. If nobody else will, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Elijah Wood. Yeah.
I know I can't even sing.
There's people all the way back there.
And there is no show without your titular character, which sounds dirtier than I meant it. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Dirk Gently himself, Samuel Barnett.
Stop it.
All right, a lot of people to talk to, lots to get into, much to unpack. Let's start down there with you, Robert. The show, from day one, there's this everything is connected idea and aesthetic. And you guys somehow delivered. Somehow you did connect everything. And I know the person who's the showrunner is responsible for that. Somebody sits in an office and writes some shit and goes, thank God I don't have to deal with this. And you actually have to make it happen in the real world of Vancouver. How challenging was season 1?
Oh, wow. Season 1, well, first of all, you have to understand, I mean, a large part of my job is just, you know, talking to Max. And listening to Max. I actually don't do that much talking. I described season 1, when we were here last year, I said it was kind of like, you know, you're a surgeon and you're trying to save the life of a patient who's actually being stabbed by the murderer while you're trying to save them. And I thought about it, you know, I thought, well, what am I going to say this year? How am I going to, you know, top that? And the truth is that when Max comes in at the beginning of the year, he's all these ideas, like a million things to say. I want this, and I think this should be a good idea, and we all sort of have to process that. But then, you know, there's the reality of it. You know, there's one thing to have all these creative ideas, nothing to try and achieve that and actually put it on film. And I kind of think of it as like trying to take a sip of water from a fire hose. You know, you're just getting blasted in the face and you're trying to figure out, okay, I'll just drink this much. It's always fun. Max always says to me, can we do that? And I feel like a lot of my job is to say, sure, let's try. Let's see what happens. And then we, get in the editing room and figure out what we should and shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Max, when you're not busy pulling out your fire hose and splashing him all over his face, neck, and chest, what is
I see you watch my Instagram story, Kevin.
Take me through here. This is what I would like to do. If you see a show like this, and you're like, how does that happen? How does something that smart get through the process? It starts with personality. Everything in this life, in this business, starts with personality. Max is insanely good at pitching. I've watched Max pitch, and it's fucking phenomenal. Max could pitch me on the murder of my own mother, and I'd be like, let's do her in. That sounds smart,
We're shooting in fall. We have full financing.
So, Max, do me a favor. I know you can't remember word for word, but can you show us what the pitch for this show was like?
Well, I'll tell you something really interesting about this show.
You know the panel's only an hour, right?
I'll tell you something really interesting and something really true that not many people know, which is that I did not pitch this show. I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't try. It would be a fool's errand. The show's too complicated. The characters are too bizarre. I'd be told no almost immediately within the room, no matter how charismatic I was, no matter how many hands I shook or Comic-Con parties I went to. I was the son of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas due to an errant night in 1985. It wouldn't matter. No one would listen to me. I'd sound like I was doing fan fiction for something that didn't exist. So what happened, I realized very early on, if I wanted to make a show that would be honest to the scope, the scale, and the tone of the books, would be that I'd have to pitch as I went. So the first thing I had to do was write a really good pilot. Except the pilot, if you've seen it, has all these unanswered questions and all this weird shit, and why is Todd in that jacket? And, okay, his sister is, I guess, a character. Who's that woman on the bed? I had to write a pilot that was fun enough to read, that it served as a pitch, so I didn't have to walk into a room, so I didn't have to convince anyone ever, because they had the Bible, they didn't need the preacher. And then, because that's only half of the job, you have to pitch at some point. I said, screw that, I'm not doing that either. Instead, I'm writing the show Bible. So I wrote 68 pages? A 68-page show Bible with detailed breakdowns of every character, multiple pages long, with long sequences in it, written in Dirk's voice. Dirk told you there was an intro, an extra, everything you needed to know about the show, including the entire mystery backwards from the start. So what happened was the show itself, this document, became the pitch. Because I realized I could never get someone to sit down and listen to me talk for that long who wasn't dating me or being paid.
Now, just to put that in context, ladies and gentlemen, in this business of show, what happens is we all try our lives to get here. Because the idea of making pretend for the rest of our lives, as we did in childhood, sounds appetizing and realistic. So when you get into the business, one of the first things that falls away is your willingness to do work for no money. Because you're like, well, now I should get paid for this sort of thing. So what he just described was multi-steps in a process where generally what happens is somebody walks in and talks about a show. And then the network goes, all right, we're going to think about it internally and have a discussion. And then maybe they tap you to write an outline or something. And if you're lucky, the next step is writing a script, which all of these steps you get paid for. And most people are like, I'll let my agent handle this. I'm not going to do any work until there's money on the table. What I just heard was that you did all of the steps before you even knew you had a TV show or a place to bring it to, free for nothing. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct, but you have to keep in mind, this year I wrote an 158 essay about Carly Rae Jepsen. I really...
I was trying to give you praise. And then you remind everybody you're an idiot.
I mean, like, it sounds like I'm wildly prolific and ambitious, but I mean, the truth is I'm just a buffoon, sort of, who someone gave Microsoft Word and Final Draft to, and it's just been a mess ever since.
How, and this is for those in the audience who like the writerly arts, how often do you write every day? Is there a schedule, or do you write because you want to, so there is no schedule?
I have no schedule and only write when I think I have a good idea. I find that the stuff I write when I force myself to write is really hard, and that means when I'm on, like Rob and I have been in...
Yeah, you know, like when you actually need a script to shoot.
Yeah, and so it'll be like you have a week to write, you know, this 60-page thing, and I'll be like, I don't really feel like writing, and then it'll be Friday. And and I'll go, oh, I guess I write it now, and then it's done. And that's my only cool skill as a human being. That's it. I don't have anything else. I can't juggle anymore. I forgot how.
Anymore? Did you used to be able to juggle?
I'm a mediocre kisser. I have like writing, and I found a website that lets me make shirts.
You have yo-yo skills.
What?
You have yo-yo skills.
Oh yeah, I've gotten better at yo-yo this season.
Let's confirm, though, something. Elijah, is he a terrible, mediocre kisser?
Yeah, Elijah, is he?
I have no idea.
Let's talk to the cast, because, my Lord, how frustrating it must be to deal with what we just heard. Schedules coming in at the last minute, not knowing where your character is going to be at the end of the season, looking at a script and going, this reads smart, but I don't know if I can pull this off. Well, I guess I'll help. What is the idea when you see a script, not just the first one, but every script for Dirk Gently? Is there a feeling of huzzah or a feeling of, let's do this? Like what? Tell me.
Well, I think it's more huzzah, definitely. And then on the second reading, you go, yeah, no, how are we going to do this? That's kind of how it goes. But what Max does brilliantly with these scripts is combines fantastic plot, truly original ideas, which I do think is hard to do these days because everything's been done, with characters that have proper emotional depths and arcs throughout the entire season. So you've kind of got everything in there. So when you get it, it's like so satisfying because you know that you're just going to have the best time getting your teeth into it. And also, you also get it and go, I have literally no idea what's going on, and even if he explains it to me at this stage, it's not going to help because there are things that Max will plant in episode 1 of season 1 that won't pay off until episode 10 of season 2. So in a way, you don't need to know everything. I experience it like I'm watching it as a viewer. Like, I'm just going to stay with this and see where it goes. And it pays off.
Yeah, and to a certain degree, too, the characters are in the same position as the audience. The characters are never ahead of the audience. We are in the dark as we're going. We're discovering just as the audience is. So to a certain degree, we don't have to know what's going on in regards to the plot, as confusing as it is, as long as the emotional truth of what the characters are going through is present, and that is so present within the dialogue and the way that he writes these characters. So that's our root, and that's our anchor, and everything else is sort of this storm that's happening around us.
And your trusting nature allows you to just believe, like, hey, if everything goes really wrong, them Eagles will show up and save me.
Always. You know, the first thing I read, obviously, was the pilot script for this, and the pilot, it literally creates a million questions and no answers. If anyone's seen the pilot, you know that to be true. But I was in love with it. I knew I loved it. I knew I loved these characters. I knew I loved the world and where things seemed to be going, that I had no idea where it was actually going. But it was so ingrained in me. I had fallen in love with this thing. And so I ended up having a Skype with Rob and Max, where they then described what the season was going to be and ultimately where my character was going to go. And there's a moment in the first episode where Todd sees himself. Yeah. The elevator door opens, and inexplicably there he is having an argument with someone around the corner. And I was like, what the is that? And he was like, oh, right, you'll see that in episode 7. It's great. You become a badass with a fur jacket, and oh, it's time travel. What? I'm in. And that's the kind of stuff that we got to work with, and these beautiful reveals that would sort of happen mid-season because the script hadn't come out yet, and then you'd have a side conversation with Max where he's like, oh, I didn't tell you that thing? I'm like, no, you didn't. This is amazing. And this still happens, where the dissemination of information is relatively solid, but there are some pretty massive things that we just like run into him in the hallway, and then he's like, oh yeah, this happens in episode 8. And you're like, wow, I had no idea. And it's thrilling.
Hannah, does your disease exist in the real world?
You know, everyone thinks it exists. I know you thought it existed.
I Googled it.
Yeah.
It too.
It does not exist, guys. You can't light yourself on fire in a grocery store.
Or can you? I mean...
But I was telling you yesterday, it feels very similar to my social anxiety, as I always feel like Amanda.
Right.
Yeah, no, her disease.
How does one research a role that, like, well, that doesn't really happen to real people?
You know, I actually, in one of the first few episodes, I was supposed to freeze to death, so I took a bath of ice, and I felt like all Daniel Day-Lewis-y. And I was like, yeah, I'm so cool and, like, method and whatever. And then the next script I got, I lit on fire, so I was like, no, I can't. I end at the ice. So I just watched a bunch of kids on YouTube being idiots lighting themselves on fire.
Hannah, I love you. That's amazing.
Thank you. Because I just got in worse and worse scenarios and positions as Amanda, and I can't actually do them as Hannah anymore and still be alive for the show. So yeah, now I'm just being a regular actor.
So you had your own like jackass on the side.
Yeah, I did. I was like dipping my toe in like an ice bucket, and I was like, I did it.
Jay, did you know when you were hired for the show that you were going to be playing the muscle, essentially?
You know, that's a funny story. I did know that and immediately said, no, I can't do this. You want to see me for this? Something's wrong. And I think I delayed. I delayed even like really reading it or putting myself on tape for it because I was like, there's no way. You see, never mind. So, yeah. And then once I got it and I thought that, well, maybe they'll tweak it, because, I mean, I'm tiny. She's supposed to, like, take down 10 guys in 2 seconds. How's that going to work? How are we going to do that? Nope, no changes. That happened day one. So, yeah, I go to the gym now, and I work with, like, you know, fight trainers, and, like, yeah, it's legit. That's
one of the really...
Woo! I know!
One of the cool things is Max was talking about and Elijah was talking about the first episode really doesn't give you the full perspective on the characters or on where it's going.
Farrah's just tied to a bed.
Yeah, Farrah, and she actually has no dialogue in the first 2 episodes. And so, you know, casting is often presents a challenge. So what Max will do is write about a 2-page monologue for the character that is not actually in one of the scripts. But inevitably, he falls in love with it, and it eventually goes in a script somewhere down the line. And, you know, for example, there was initially quite a long monologue for Sheriff Hobbs, who Tyler plays. He never actually read it because he didn't audition. When we heard Tyler would be interested in doing the show, we were just like, yes, please.
Well, same with Alan, except for they both now do those monologues.
Yeah, those monologues are actually in the show.
But I remember also when you approached me about the show, you sent me a video. You sent me a video where he played both parts in a scene and acted it out for me and was like, please come do this. And I was like, how do you say no to that? That was amazing. One of the best things I've ever seen.
Can I just say we did a table read recently where Max was the narrator and also playing several characters within a scene at once? Wow. It was
Dude, just get it over with and cast yourself, man. Like, I think you've got some pull.
I'm such a bad actor. They're being very nice. Well, it was funny for Jade's. What was cool is that, you know, Jade, I think first reading the first pilot, you were like, what the is this character?
What the hell?
And then we talked, and I was like, no. She's the third lead of the show. And you were like, what?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that from the pilot, you know, because she like had 2 lines.
Well, then you had that. You did the monologue
That's
that
right.
I wrote for you.
Yes,
where you, do
which
you remember?
was great. I love that. That's what made me fall in love with Farrah in the first place, because it's so hard. It's like this big block of text that you have to like manage, and it was just the way it was written. It was just beautiful because you see all of her idiosyncrasies, all of her weird neuroses in these words. And so in a way, it was just so easy for me with that. Normally it's really difficult, but for that, it was so easy because it was just so innately who I am in a way. Whoa.
Call yourself neurotic.
A little bit. A little bit.
Click to the left for the Dirk Gently panel part 2, or click to the right for Doctor Who panel part 1.